Hi. Welcome to Roll for Question, the stream where a veteran DM answers your questions about Dungeons and Dragons. I only have one question to answer today. This might be a short stream, but it's not a super common one, but it does come up from time to time, where a player will ask, Hi, I have a problem with my group. One of the players has an absurdly high armor class, and I don't know how to challenge it. My party is level X. It happens. It's a difficult question to answer. It's not difficult. There are multiple levels to this question, though. And I should say that this question is not limited to just armor class. You may run into a situation where one of your players has optimized any part of their character way beyond what you're capable of. They may have maxed out their perception. They have a passive perception of 30, and you feel smothered by that as a DM. Maybe they have they've nailed down a damage combo, and they can put out way more damage than you can really handle. They are doing something that you are finding it difficult to cope with as a DM. They have optimized in some way. They've maxed out their persuasion. They've got like plus 18 to persuasion in their level 5. And you don't know how to challenge them anymore. It's not that the player is using persuasion on everything. It's not that they're using it as a hammer to nail down, to hit every nail. But it's that you'd like for them to have a social encounter where they need to talk their way through something. And when a character has a plus 18 to persuasion, what kind of social challenges can you offer? You know, it feels very limiting. What kind of challenges can you offer a player when they have an AC of 26 and they're level 5? It's a good question. It's a good question. And before I dive into this, I should just mention that this does bring up the idea that one of your players is highly optimized. Are the rest of your players okay with that? Because if you have a situation where you have one player that really knows how to play the game and they've really optimized and they have a really powerful character and everyone else at the table is new and they have no idea what they're doing and they are just flopping around and making mistakes and they are not playing optimally at all, you will find it difficult to solve that, because if you build a challenge for your optimized player, what will happen is the rest of your players are just going to get flattened. It's going to blow them away. And likewise, if you try and build a challenge for your unoptimized players, the optimized player is just going to be like, that's easy, I solved that problem. I'm not even going to roll it. I don't even have to roll a die. I automatically solve it. I rolled a d20, I rolled a natural 1 plus 19. I still solved it. Yeah, that's a hard problem to solve. So if your players have differing levels of optimization going on, that's a different problem. That's an important problem to solve before you try and solve this problem. If you've got players that have created characters that are just well outside the bounds of this system, what this system is expecting, which they can do. There are definitely ways to do that in D&D 5th edition. There are a couple of things to consider. If you're a new player, if you're a new DM, if you are not comfortable with homebrewing, if you're running a book, or if you're just if you're not comfortable with homebrewing and you're not capable of introducing homebrew content to the players in a way that they will accept, if your players are not open to that kind of stuff, then what you should do is you should take your players aside between the games. You should say, hey, you won D&D. Your character's too good. Could you please tone your character down? I can't challenge you anymore. You know, you have to have a frank conversation with the players. Tell them exactly the problem that you're having. If they're cool, they might help you. They might offer solutions. They might not. In which case, you should just tell them, hey, your AC is too high. I can't challenge you. Could you please make a character that has a lower AC? And if they don't like that, well, you're kind of stuck. You can't really run the game. You can't. If you don't have the option to homebrew, if you don't have the option to tinker with stuff, you don't really have the option to solve this problem. All you can either do is get your players to change their character, or your game is kind of doomed. You could keep rolling along. You could keep throwing challenges at them that they are going to crush because the book tells you to, or for whatever reason. However long that lasts, you can do that. Now, if you do have the option of homebrewing, if you do have the option of tinkering with combats to cater them to your players, which, you know, is a good skill. It's not a skill I would recommend that new players take a stab at, but it is a skill that an experienced DM I'd expect them to have. You can adjust monsters to account for your player's strengths, but let me put a big asterisk by that, because that can very easily go sideways if you do it in a way that makes it feel adversarial to the players. If a player has a 26 armor class and they're level 5, and you decide, I'm going to send against them some trolls, and these trolls have plus 20 to hit, that player is going to be upset at you, and rightfully so, because it's pretty clear that you're targeting them, and it's pretty clear that that is an attempt to invalidate their choice, and that's bad. They're not going to have fun. So you need to keep that in mind, that when you are designing challenges, you want to design them in a way that you are challenging the players, but you don't want them to feel like their strength is being torn down, wasted, targeted. You know, getting that 26 AC took some finesse, some finagling, some character building. You know, that was a choice that the player made. And if you go in and say, hey, everything here has plus 20 to hit, you know, that player is not going to feel like their choice is being respected. They're going to feel targeted. They're going to feel called out. So you have to be careful. You have to consider a couple of things when you make these challenges. Now, before I continue, there is one other answer that I hear commonly to this question, where it's like, okay, your player has a 26 AC and they can cast shield to boost it up to 31, but casting shield is a resource, and having a 26 AC means that other characters probably don't have a 26 AC. They probably have a lower AC. It doesn't mean that at all, but for some reason people assume that. So what you can do is you can solve this problem by simply throwing more combats, throwing more encounters at your party, and targeting someone else other than the character that has a really high AC. That is a complicated debate, I would say. It's not necessarily wrong, but the problem with adjusting the adventuring day is that is tinkering with a lot more than just combat, because now you're tinkering with like the strategic resource of the party. If you're like, I'm going to throw in 4 more combats a day, is that balanced? Is that going to produce a more fun game? Does that actually address the problem that the DM is having? I've got this player with a 26 AC. You know, the first 6 combats, like, they're invulnerable, and then the 7th combat, they're not invulnerable. Is the DM having fun that is the outcome of your advice? I don't. It maybe, but not necessarily. The other thing is, shoot, I forgot what I said. Adventuring Day and target someone else. Yeah, the thing with targeting someone else is that is that works on some level, but that's also very easy to do in such a way to where you're invalidating the player's choice, and or you're targeting it's almost like you're punishing the player for having a high AC, and you're punishing the other players who are now on the receiving end of additional attacks for that player having a high AC. It's also not really solving the problem that the DM is having. You know, I think the core of the question is that the DM wants to make a challenge for this party, and that challenge applies to everyone in that party. So if you say, all right, well, to challenge this player, let's ignore them, is not quite correct. That is, it's an answer to a different question, I think. So I don't particularly subscribe to solve this problem by challenging everyone else. No. We've got a player. They have too much of something, and the game system does not expect them to have that. They got it legitimately, though. So we've got to deal with it. How do we deal with it? Now, there's no one-size-fits-all solution that I know of. There's no, like, perfect solution. But I have a solution, and I will happily share it. And you may have a better solution, and if you do, feel free to share it in the comments. But what I like to do is focus on, for each character, focus on like their dominant theme, what they're trying to emphasize with their character. I made this character really, really, really good at one thing. Focus on what that thing is. Separate it out. And then when you're building a challenge, have that at the front of your mind. So like, this character has 26 AC. Okay. It's very obvious how useful that is, because creatures can't hit you. They hit you like once. There's like a 25% chance that they'll hit you once in a combat, and they will do a fair amount of damage, but not a threatening amount of damage. Leverage that fact. Let the player appreciate the benefits of having a high AC for at least one combat. Build a combat where it's extra advantageous to have a high AC. So like, you could build an environment where it's like, if you have an AC less than 20, you're in trouble. A bad thing happens. Oh, but your AC is 26? Don't worry about it. You're good. You're good. Don't worry about it. Reward the player for their optimal choice. Hopefully doing this is just fun for the player. It might not be. It's the goal for it to be fun, but it's not always the case that you get there. But doing so opens up the opportunity, the possibility for you to build another challenge that punishes the player for their choice. You reward the player for their choice so that you have room to punish them for that choice. You don't want to just build fights that punish the player for their choice and not reward them, because, you know, that's how you make the player really salty and not want to make characters anymore. But you can absolutely build a combat that you can periodically build a combat that you invested a lot in AC. Well, in this fight, everyone subtracts their AC from their speed. Everything's really heavy. Like, that's just how it is. So, you know, you have a 26 AC. Oh, buddy, people are gonna have to move you around. That's your problem. You know, do something like that. You can also, you can be more direct, and you can say, okay, in this fight, the monsters, the first attack is against the AC. The second attack is against dexterity. It just bypass AC. We're just going to bypass AC. And yeah, you can make a fight challenging that way if you just completely bypass the player's strength. It is not necessarily interesting to do that. It's not necessarily challenging to do that either. If you're just like, I wanted to make a cool fight, but I need to be able to hit the player with high AC, so I just made it so I don't need to hit their AC to hit them. Is that interesting? Maybe. It might need more than that, though. You might need to cook up a little more mechanical creativity to make up for denying your players, basically. Yeah, it's easier to get into specifics, so I'll just leave it there. But you can make a combat that rewards your player for their optimal choice. Make another so that you have room to make another combat that punishes the player for that choice, and then make one more combat. I say combat, I should be saying encounter, but whatever. Make one more encounter that completely turns everything on its head when it comes to that mechanic. Get creative, get wild. So you have a combat. Everyone's AC is shoot, I had an example here a second ago. Let me just check my notes. Okay. I had a different example here. The example I had was like, let's say you have a player who is really, really, really good at smiting. Through some clever choices, some multi-classing, and with like a feat that is maybe being interpreted wrong, they can do 13d8 damage with every smite. And they can smite twice per turn because they somehow figured out how to do that through the rules. That's powerful. And they're level 6, by the way. That's really powerful. How do you deal with that as a DM? You can have a fight where here's some undead. They're extremely smiteable. If you smite them, a good thing happens. Like you get healed or something. Okay, cool. Here's another fight. There are undead here. You can smite them, but every time you do smite them, they explode, and it hurts. Okay, well that sucks. Alright, well, here's the third fight. In this fight, you're fighting against undead who can also smite. And also, in this fight, every time anyone smites, a demon spawns. A friendly demon. So you smite and you get a buddy demon. Are you okay with that? I don't know. But this other guy, your opponent is smiting 3 times a turn. Okay, they're summoning a lot of demons. So what are you going to do about it? Like, suddenly, like being able to do 13d8 damage on a smite isn't important. It's the how many demons can you summon? That's what becomes important. Or maybe you don't want to summon demons because that's a little weird and maybe not your style. In which case, you can find an alternative to smiting, or figure out a way to smite, but not make demons happen at the same time. Turn the mechanic on its head, and having a mirror match is often a good way to accomplish that if you're stumped. So in the case of high AC, you could have another opponent who's also got a high AC, and then you can introduce a way for players and characters to spend their AC to do things, and then it just becomes a completely different nonsense combat instead of your traditional, I have a lot of AC, and you rolled a 14 to hit, but plus 6 is not 26, so you miss. Yeah. That keeps it that doing those 3 things, making a combat that rewards your player, making a combat that punishes your player, and then making a combat that like mixes up your player's thoughts on how their optimization works. That's how I challenge players that optimize to a particular level. That is something that keeps it interesting for me as a DM, and something that I hope doesn't make the player hate me. Unless the player feel like they are a part of the game. They're getting to make choices, and hopefully also something that the rest of the party gets to participate in too, because this player with the high AC, he's got allies and they don't have a high AC, and I would rather not just punish them for this one player having high AC, but I also don't want them to feel like, or I want them to feel like that the high AC of that player is a part of the game, part of the game that they can use. So like, there's a problem. There's a bunch of spiders in that next room. Person on our team with a lot of AC, go in there. Go in there. They can't bite you because they only have +5 to hit. I want them to be able to think solutions like that, even if it's not a good solution. Creating. Oh, I should be typing this up, huh? Okay. So if you are not able to homebrew because you are running a book too new as a DM to comfortably do that. What else did I say? Your players don't want you to homebrew. I think there was something else. I can't remember. But if any of that's the case, talk to your players outside of the game and tell them that their optimization is causing you problems as the DM. Tell them they win D&D and to please make a character that you can deal with. If you are comfortable and capable of homebrewing up challenges for your that are adapted party, then you roll. Then you make a challenge that caters to that player's optimization. Then make a challenge that punishes that player's optimization. Then finally make a challenge that how to phrase this, turns that optimization on its head. That's not a very well phrased way to say do something wild and wacky that is wild and wacky about oh boy, I don't know how to word this. Make a challenge that makes the optimize value something unique and wild and unusual. No, that causes that. Make a challenge that brings an unusual take on the player's optimization. That's a real blunt, not blunt, gray, dull way of saying do something that makes your player think. Here's a mechanic that makes you glad that you took a lot of AC, but also like AC doesn't work the way you think it makes anymore. So for example, a player with high AC, make a fight that rewards having a high AC. That's not difficult. a fight that punishes having a high AC or just bypasses, like a fight with a lot of fireballs. Make a fight that uses AC in a novel way. These are not bullet pointed. Sometimes a mirror match is a good way to get inspiration on this. Allow the PC to spend their optimized value. So like for the example where a PC might have high AC, at the start of each turn, a player adds their AC, gains temp hit points equal to their AC. They can spend these temp hit points to blah 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 blah. They can spend these temp hit points to do cool stuff, like strike a point with lightning. I don't know. The thing I had in my notes was a player with high smite damage, high burst damage. Make a fight that rewards having high burst damage. Like a creature that has a thing where when they die, they do they do a debuff. They inflict a debuff. But if they are bursted down, no debuff. Make a fight that punishes having high burst damage. A creature that, if it dies too quickly, it explodes, dealing damage to everyone around it. And then make a fight that is weird with smites, like a fight where every time you smite a small demon, a small friendly is summoned. And the party is fighting enemies that can smite. This kind of thing is not limited to just fighting. This kind of thing is not just limited to stats that are useful in combat. Player. This one is, I've encountered this enough times that it bothers me. But a player with high persuasion, deception, or other charisma skills. Make a challenge where the player can really benefit from their skill. Like a creature that does that like offers a favor or reward if it is sufficiently charisma'd. A challenge where that skill is a liability. Like a creature that takes the bonus as a penalty if the PC's strength is too low. Like they don't trust you if your strength is too low. They are the smoother talker you are, the less they trust you. But if your strength is above a certain number, you get the bonus. But we know beforehand when we're making this challenge that player, their strength, they got an 8 in that strength. They dumped their strength score or whatever. I don't know. They probably don't have a plus 18 to persuasion, and they have a high strength score. And then make a challenge where their charisma skill is useful in a non-charisma manner, like I don't know. Making these challenges without any sort of background or context or any sort of seed. Let me think. So the last time I had a game with a high charisma character in the party, the last thing that character was doing was they were trying to talk themselves into making a lot of money. That's not really a challenge. I don't know. Shoot. Make a challenge where their charisma skill is useful in a non-charisma manner. Like being able to make charisma checks to read people's minds. And it's a two-way street, of course. Yeah. What are some other situations where a player might be optimized to the point where it bothers the DM? Perception. Perception is one, for sure. Perception is player with high passive perception. This does come up. I do hear people talk about this a lot. I don't feel like this one is particularly, it doesn't put a lot of pressure on the DM because high passive perception just means you can't really ambush that player, but you can still challenge them in the traditional sense. You just can't challenge them in certain ways, but you may feel that that's like, I really want to throw ambushes at my party, even though this player has a 25 passive perception. So what you can do, make a challenge where having that high passive perception is a vital asset. It totally saves party's bacon. Like the player spots a critical ambush. That gives you room to make a challenge where having that high passive perception is a liability. So like There are a lot of hidden visual traps. And looking at them triggers them. You might also have a kind of a situation where you can create a challenge or a challenge where passive perception doesn't really work. Like the room is filled with fog and you can't see through it, no matter how high your passive perception is. Let's say noisy fog. Can't see or hear through it. You can create challenges that make your party make the party's high passive perception not immediately foil them. You can punish them, basically, and then make a challenge where the player can use their passive perception in an unusual way, like by spotting weak points on an enemy. Yeah. Yeah. What other ways are there for a player to optimize in a way that's annoying? I feel like, so armor class is definitely high on that list. Saving throws, physical stats, mental stats. You know, nothing else is coming to mind right now. And this is the kind of thing to where if you just want an abstract answer, or if you have an abstract situation, you can get an abstract answer. But if you want if you have a concrete situation, then you can get a concrete answer about how to make a challenge for your party, even if that party is optimized well outside the bounds of what D&D designers expect to happen. So, I've definitely had situations where someone in the party, they're wearing full plate, they've got the fighter defensive stance, they've got another +2 from something, I don't remember. They've got a +1 shield. They're probably getting it from the shield, actually. So they're getting +3 from their shield. They might be getting Shield of Faith, which is another +2. And then they're casting Shield. So that gets their AC up to 29. And there's no, even if you add a character that's like, I have +50, even if you had a monster that's like, I have +15 to hit. Realistically, +15 to hit, AC 29, there's still a decent chance that misses. And if you throw a +15 creature at anyone else, it will always hit them. It'll be doing way more damage than it should be. And meanwhile, you're not actually hitting the player you want to be hitting yet. You might have to bump that up to +25. And if you do that, like, okay, you've become an adversarial DM. And I can't say that those characters lasted for a long time. They you can only build so much challenge before, quite frankly, they win. They win D&D. Like, if your AC, if you get an AC above 30, you win D&D. Okay, you win. That, what do you want? You can beat any obstacle. Not any obstacle, but you can beat most obstacles that get put in front of you. I think even the Tarask only has like a plus 19 to hit or something. That is high, but against AC 30, that's still like a 50-50 of hitting. And being able to 50-50 on a Tarask is... you can't do better than that. So even if you decide to go down the homebrew route, there is a limit. There is still a limit for challenge before either you start going where no DM has gone before. You start homebrewing up new stuff. You start adding in new rules. You start mixing things up, or you start over with a new character who doesn't have this problem, and then everyone has fun. The stuff that I've written down here, this will get you through 5 to 10 games, 5 to 10 sessions. If you're planning on running, like, I want to have this super overpowered character in my campaign, and I want this campaign to last for years and years and years. I don't know how you do that without going insane as a DM, or without introducing homebrew rules to tamp down on that, or introducing homebrew rules to tamp down on that is the only other solution I can think of. Yeah, I don't know. It's got a shelf life. Your character has a shelf life if they're super overpowered. That is true if they are always ahead of the curve. If it's the kind of thing where it's like, the character has an AC of 22 and they're level 1. That's really high for level 1. But at level 10, that's not as high. It's still high. But they will find that there are things that will hit them more than 50% of the time once they hit level 11 and beyond. It might be the case to where you just rush through the first 10 levels. You use this. You make a couple of challenges that follow this formula to get there, and then you get to level 11, and then you're back on normal street. I have not seen that happen, but theoretically that could happen. That could be how you keep the game challenging and fun for everybody. Yeah. I don't know of any better system. I've listened. If you have advice that is better than this, I'd love to hear it. Everyone would love to hear it, honestly. This is not super uncommon of a problem. And, it'd be nice to have a proper solution. The solution I hear most often is adventuring day. Hit them with the adventuring day so that, okay, cool, they have an AC of 26 right now. But after the 8th encounter of the day, I doubt they'll have that 26 AC. I don't particularly like that. And I don't particularly like the advice of just attack everyone who doesn't have a 26 AC. I don't particularly like both of those advice, which they're somewhat common advice. Yeah, if you've got a good idea, if you've cooked up a homebrew solution to this problem, that's cool. Share it. I don't know if that's universally going to be a good solution, because homebrew is great for your table. It's great for your players. But in order to be great for everybody's table and for everybody, it needs to be adaptable. I'm not entirely sure what I'm trying to say. Not every solution is for everyone. That goes for this too, I suppose. I've heard solutions of okay, you can have IAC, but we're going to turn up the difficulty of this game. So, like, you can't rest anymore. You can rest, but if you rest, bad things will happen, and you need to spend a lot of money to make it happen, and you need a lot of, like, you can only do it in certain locations, and if you don't do it in the right location, if you do it at the wrong time, then the game ends and the credits roll, and, like, there's a failure screen, and, you know, the world blows. I don't know. Bad things happen if you rest. So you can have your high AC, but the game is still challenging because I have made this game challenging through other means. That's fine. Not everyone's going to be into that, but it's a good. It's a solution, and it's worth looking at. I don't know. I don't have I ran out of notes, so I think I've said what I know. I've shared what I know. If this is helpful, I hope you can make use of it. If it's not helpful, then I apologize. It's definitely not an easy problem to solve. Optimization is a challenging. Matching your game to the level of optimization of your players is a hard problem to solve. It just is. You're gonna have to. You're gonna try and you're gonna fail more than a few times. We all will. We've all done that. We've all had combats where, oh man, how are the players gonna deal with this? And then you put down like 4 ogres, and then the players are like, those are just ogres. I fly above them and I shoot them in the face. And you're like, oh, okay, well, they're dead now. Whoops, should have given them a ranged attack. Or then you're like, okay, I gave these ogres a ranged attack. And they're like, okay, but they're ogres still. So we just shoot them in the face from a distance. And it's like, oh, what am I doing? Am I a bad DM? Anyway, I'm going to roll on, keep on making challenges, keep on trying, keep on taking a stab at it, and eventually you'll find gold. Yep. Anyway, I didn't have anything else, so I'm just going to call it here. Thanks for watching. Hope this was helpful. Hope you're having a good day. I'm going to head out now. So, see you all next time.